I think this might be one of my favorite horror books that I've read this year. But if this book is not 5 stars, like, I'm gonna be absolutely devastated. Hey friends, how's it going? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're gonna be doing a very exciting reading vlog because it's going to be a Halloween weekend reading vlog. I just kicked off this reading vlog about a day before Halloween, you know, on Halloween Eve, because I wanted to get a head start on my reading, and I thought it was so perfect that this year's Halloween landed on a Friday. And so for me, it just felt like the perfect opportunity to make a Halloween weekend reading vlog where I try to read a few different horror things that are on my TBR. I also ended up driving down to my friend Brittany's apartment on November 1st, and we tried to do a 12-hour readathon together. And so this reading vlog that you're about to see, it includes Halloween Eve, Halloween that I spent with Rachel and Obed, and then a 12-hour readathon that I did with my friend Brittany on November 1st. And so some books that I was able to read in this vlog include The Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre. This was a book that I've been highly anticipating ever since I first heard about it, because this one is actually a horror book that is a slasher, and it takes place in a retirement home. And the main protagonist in this book is like 70 years old, and she has reason to believe that there is a killer on the loose in the retirement home. I've never read anything from this author before, but this book was recently an Aardvark selection, and I was just like, okay, I have to have this and I have to know. I also finally got around to one of my most anticipated books of the entire year, which is Hazelthorn by C.J. Drews. Because the other book by C.J. Drews, Don't Let the Forest In, is my #1 favorite book that I've read this year, I've been so highly anticipating this. And so this is definitely like a 5-star prediction of mine and one of my most anticipated books of the year. And this one is a young adult horror novel that follows these 2 boys. And then I also ended up buddy reading with my friend Brittany. We buddy read 2 of the books from the Scared Sexy series on Amazon Prime. So one of them is this book called Hot for Slayer by Ali Hazelwood, and then I also read Space Vampire by Ruby Dixon. And both of these are like short horror romance books. They're both like less than 100 pages, and I had both of those downloaded on my Kindle. And then the last thing that I read for this video is this collection of short stories called One Bad Night. And this one was actually recently published by Aardvark in the month of October, and the amount of authors that I know that have contributed to this collection is actually crazy. There's 8 different short stories in here, and in this collection we have short stories from Stephen Graham Jones, from Rachel Harrison, Kylie Lee Baker, Jennifer Thorne, like just to name a few. Like some of my favorite horror authors contributed stories to this. So this is one that I have been very highly anticipating, so I'm really glad that I finally got around to this one. But before we do jump into the reading vlog, I just wanted to take a second to thank today's video sponsor, which is Factor, because they have doubled the size of their menu to 80+ rotating weekly meals, and these are chef-crafted restaurant quality meals. You can enjoy more nutritious and balanced meal options tailored to a wide range of health goals so that you can reach them with ease. And depending on what you're looking for in your diet, they really have you covered with anything, because they have calorie smart options, they have protein plus, they have vegan and veggie, and Factor is always adding more exciting flavors to the menu so that you can enjoy a nutritious meal without having to sacrifice on the flavor. One of my favorite things about having Factor is definitely the convenience. I love the fact that I can just throw this into the microwave for 2 minutes and I have a warm and nutritious meal ready to go. I am definitely one of those people that doesn't want to be cooking in the kitchen every single night, and when it comes to like dinner time or even lunchtime, it can be stressful trying to figure out like, what am I gonna make now? So I love when I have these in the fridge ready to go. I don't even have to think about it. I'm also just a really big fan of any of their dishes that have chicken in it specifically. I'm always drawn to those ones because the flavors are always so good. So you can head to factor75.com or click the link down below and use my code gabbyreadsfb50 to get 50% off your first box with Factor plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code gabbyreadsfb50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box with Factor plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's such an amazing deal because you know who loves breakfast? I love breakfast. Thank you so much to Factor for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get into the reading vlog. Okay, hello, it is October 30th right now, and I've already had a really busy and productive morning because I finally went to the gym this morning. I've been meaning to go to the gym for like the last couple of days in a row, and every morning when I got out of bed, I just could not find the motivation to go, so I'm so glad that I finally went today. And I've just been sitting here reading this book, The Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre, and I'm now 158 pages into this one, and when I tell you that I am loving this book so much. I'm obsessed with this. I think this might be one of my favorite horror books that I've read this year. And I know that I'm still like early on in the book, but the way that I have this fear that like this book is about to break me. So this is one that I was excited to read because this one is actually like a slasher horror novel, and we're following this character named Rose, and she's in her late 70s. She's living in this retirement home called Autumn Springs, and this story is about how Rose starts to believe that there's a serial killer on the loose at this retirement home, and she's worried that she might be next. So the story's kind of about how Rose and one of her close friends, this guy named Miller, are trying to figure out like what exactly is going on in this retirement home. I was a little bit nervous to read this one because I'm not always the biggest fan of slashers, at least when it comes to books, which is something that I always do talk about because I love, you know, slashers in movies. You know, like I love Halloween, I love Scream, but I feel like there's a specific thing about slashers in movies that really works for me that often doesn't happen in books. But in this scenario, like I am loving not only the slasher vibes in this are so good, but I love reading from the perspective of Rose, you know, this woman in her 70s. This book so far feels like a combination of two other books that I really enjoyed because it does remind me a lot of Too Old for This by Samantha Downing, just in the way that we're reading from the perspective of a woman who's like in her 70s, and the way that she's like doing a lot of reflecting about her life and talking about the way that young people treat her now and the way that people seem to underestimate her just because she's older. You know, I do think if you liked the narration style in this, you'll probably absolutely love this, but then at the same time, it's also kind of reminding me of We Spread by Ian Reid. And if you didn't know, We Spread by Ian Reid is another story where the protagonist is an elderly woman who is now going to be living in this retirement home, and this book is kind of about how she doesn't know if she can trust the people in this retirement home. And dude, like me even comparing this book right now to We Spread is crazy because We Spread is like one of my favorite books of all time, and this is one of the only horror books that has ever made me absolutely bawl my eyes out. We Spread is a book that I read and I was really unwell after finishing it, and it's so crazy that I'm already feeling like there's so many similarities between these two stories. I mean, I do think Rose as a protagonist, there's a lot of things about her that remind me of this character Penny, and I think part of the reason why this book is reminding me of the book We Spread is because there's already been so many good conversations about the elderly community and what it's like to get to that stage in your life, and you don't know how many years you have left, and you don't know if you can rely on your own mind in the way that you used to, and that stuff just like really gets to me. Like, I don't know if that's like a personal trigger for me, but like I think that is so sad because I think like one of my personal biggest fears is the idea of like losing my own mind and not being able to take care of myself anymore and not being independent. I think that's like a really deep-rooted fear of mine, and so anytime a book even remotely touches on this subject, it genuinely makes me so emotional. But this book has been so incredible so far, and I've been like annotating and highlighting in it. I made a specific tab color for any time that there was like some really good like slasher horror moments that I thought were really well written. Then I also made a different tab color for any of the moments that are like really beautiful quotes about like life and aging. I loved how they described the Autumn Springs retirement home is less of a home and more of a campus. And it says, over the course of their lives to afford a comfortable, if not glamorous, way of life for their sunset years. Ugh, I love that phrase, sunset years, to describe like the last years of your life. Like that is so beautiful. I also like, I almost lost it. I almost cried when the first like killing was happening because the first person gets killed on like page 20. Like it almost happens like right away. It's one of the first things that you're reading in this book. But the way that we're like in this character's head when they're getting killed, oh my god, it was just so gorgeously written that it almost made me like cry in the gym. This was one of my favorite quotes so far in the entire book, and this is only in chapter 2. Like this is right at the beginning of the story. But it says, the residents of Autumn Springs are of an age where death simply isn't the tragedy it once was. It isn't sneaking up on anybody. It isn't a thief in the night snatching away your struggling spirit while it desperately clings to life. And it sure as hell isn't a surprise. At Autumn Springs, death is hunkered in every shadow of every room. It hovers in the high corners like a giant spider, stands at your bedside and watches you sleep, or it sits congenially across the table while you sip your morning coffee. And then, when it's time, death simply taps on the shoulder, whispers softly in your ear, and slips its icy hand into yours. For the residents of Autumn Springs retirement home, a death isn't a horror movie, it's an inevitability. Sometimes it's even a comfort, sometimes it's even a friend. Ugh. Oh my god, like the way that that was written is just so beautiful. And like it also has a good point, right? Because like I think in a situation like this where like you have a bunch of characters who are living in a retirement home, there's not going to be like that many heads turned when people are like showing up dead again and again and again, because like that's just a very common occurrence in a retirement home, and it's really sad, but it's not something that's like unexpected or like shocking. So I think something like this happening in a retirement home is especially scary because death is such a common occurrence. There was this one passage that like also almost made me emotional because it was this guy talking about this waterfall that he like used to love when he was a child. Towards the end of that section when it says, but then like a gift, this woman had arrived, a beautiful beautiful, spirited, funny, witty companion, a wondrous surprise waiting for him at the end of a long road, his final waterfall? Dude, I can't take that. Like, that's beautiful. That's stunning. So yeah, it's safe to say that this is going well so far, and this feels like it's going to be such a glaring 5 stars. Like, this feels like it's going to be one of my favorite horror books that I read this year, and I'm actually afraid because I have the feeling that this book is about to make me like really emotional, and I feel like it's going to be really hard hitting for me in a way that I don't know if I'm emotionally prepared for this. I just love that this book is balancing like the creepy slasher like horror vibes. It's balancing it so well with like this cast of characters that feel so grounded and they feel so real, and I feel so much like sympathy for them, and it's just so well done. Like, I am so impressed because this is my first book by this author. Like, hello, it's just so gorgeously written, and I can't wait to finish it. In about 2 hours, I'm gonna be doing my booktube live show for the book 13 Months Haunted. We're gonna be having the live show this afternoon at around 4 o'clock my time, and then after that I'm gonna be hosting some reading sprints on Patreon tonight that are gonna be like Halloween Eve reading sprints, and I'm gonna be dressing up in like my skeleton romper for both of the live shows, so I'm really excited to like put that on, and it's really gonna start to feel like Halloween once I get dressed up. And I think tonight on sprints I'm going to try and read the rest of this book just because I'm loving it so much, and I'm trying to like stop myself from like reading this entire thing this afternoon before my sprints even start.
All I'm keeping track of is the weather, and there's no wind.
I'm in my Halloween, you know, skeleton romper here because it is Halloween Eve. Also have a few different candles lit in the room. I have my cute little beware. Let me know what you're up to. What are you reading? What are you doing today? Hi Sydney, how's it going? Hi Alex. Hello Kat. Yes, boo to all of you.
Ain't got no loyalties, no one to please. I just got that clue. Real more than ever leave, setting my soul free.
What is it called again?
Homemade
Creme brulee.
creme brulee.
Good stuff, huh?
Good stuff.
Thanks, babe. Oh, Fiend wants some.
Okay, hello. So many hours have passed. It's now 9 o'clock at night. I did my book troop live show earlier today for 13 Months Haunted, and that ended up going so well. Like, it was so much fun. I put on my little skeleton romper, and I've been wearing this all evening, and I also like did my hair. I curled my hair and I kind of like tied it back, and I also put on these like fake press-on nails, and like, oh my god, they've already been like popping off. I mean, they're literally just press-on nails, so like I wasn't expecting for them to be that great. But like these two especially, they just keep like launching off of my fingers. But anyway, I just wrapped up doing, you know, some reading sprints on my Patreon, and I just finished reading the Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre. And I am kind of surprised that like I didn't actually get emotional at the end of this book, not in the way that I thought I would. I don't know why, like this entire book while I was reading it, I was thinking to myself like, oh my gosh, this is gonna like really get to me emotionally. Like there's gonna be a big like gut punch moment at the end of this book. And to be honest, there wasn't really that kind of a moment. And so I don't know if I feel like relieved that that happened or like disappointed that there wasn't like a gut punch emotional moment. But I still love this so much. But I do think I'm gonna give this one 4.5 stars instead of 5 stars. And I think the main reason for that is because there was one aspect of the ending that just felt a little bit too convenient for me, like plot-wise. It was just kind of like, really? Like, I don't know, it just kind of like made me like roll my eyes. And so like for that reason alone, I don't think I want to give this the full 5 stars, which is a little bit of a bummer, but like I loved this so much. I just loved this character Rose. Like she was such a great standout character in this book. And I loved all of the commentary about, you know, like how we treat elderly people and how young people can be so dismissive of elderly people and like their needs. I think it is such a brilliant and like unique idea to like have a slasher take place in a retirement home because, you know, like I was saying earlier, like death is just kind of something that happens, you know, so like nobody's gonna like take a look or like think that anything weird is going on when people are dying at a retirement home. But this was just done so well. And something that I also really love about this book is that you're not just following from Rose's perspective. I mean, most of the book is told from Rose's perspective, but you do get to read the perspective of some of the other, you know, people that are living in the retirement home. And you also do get a perspective from the serial killer themselves. And it was really interesting to like hear the voice of the serial killer on the audiobook. I actually really liked getting the serial killer perspective because sometimes like their perspective would be so funny. I know this book says brimming with dark humor, horror, violence, and mystery. And I think the humor definitely comes from the fact that you're reading from the serial killer at times. Like, that was really hilarious. But overall, like, I just really loved Rose as a character. Like, she was definitely the biggest standout for me and like the reason why I enjoyed this book the most. And even though I didn't cry at the end of this book like I thought I would, there were definitely like a few moments that almost brought me to tears. And it was kind of just the way that it was written, like the way that these characters were like thinking about their life right before they would like inevitably die. There was just something about the writing in those moments that like really got to me. It was just like so beautifully done. I also like, oh my gosh, I almost cried reading the author's note and like the acknowledgements at the end of the book, because this author actually opens up about how he lost both of his parents while he was writing this book. I love how he says, in many ways, this book was a very personal and emotional project for me. And I feel like you can really tell that this book does feel like something that's very personal to the author. I feel like you can almost always tell when a book is very specifically personal to the author, because I feel like that's when the writing is just like at its best, you know? And this really was, you know, surprising to me in so many ways, because like when you think about a slasher book, like I would never think, oh, that book's gonna be like super emotional and like heartfelt at times. But like that's genuinely how I felt with the writing style in this book. Like I just thought the writing was so good and it definitely pulled on my heartstrings, which is not what I was expecting from like a slasher book. So this is definitely one of the better slashers that I've ever read. I feel like I've actually been having a lot of good luck with slashers this year with horror, because I also really loved Breathe In, Bleed Out. Like that was another one that really surprised me, but I think I loved this one even more than that one, mostly because of the characters. Like I connected way more to the characters in this one. I also do see a lot of people saying that if you like Thursday Murder Club, you might also like this one, and I can definitely see the similarities. Even though I personally was not the biggest fan of the Thursday Murder Club, I can definitely see why people are saying that they're similar. But oh my god, I'm so happy to have found a new favorite. Like this feels so good. And this also feels like the perfect thing to have read like the day before Halloween or like right around Halloween. I'm so excited because tomorrow is officially Halloween, and I'm gonna be spending the day with my sister and with Obed. I think in the morning it is gonna be raining tomorrow, so like I don't know if all of our plans are gonna go like exactly to plan because of the weather, but I think the plan for tomorrow is that we are going to this apple farm that we really like to go to every single Halloween. I think we're gonna hang out there, eat some food, and then we're probably gonna go to Mochi Nut, because Mochi Nut has these Halloween donuts this week that look so incredible, so we're gonna get some of those. We're probably gonna do some like coloring in our little spooky coloring books and maybe watch some horror movies. There's also a chance we could be watching that new It Welcome to Derry show that just came out on HBO Max, because that looks so good. So we might be doing that tomorrow, and I don't know, I'm just so excited to like have a chill spooky day. I think it's gonna be so great. Is about 10:30 at night, and it is the end of the night on Halloween. I just made my nightly cup of tea that I'm so addicted to, and I just got home from doing all of the fun things. I threw on my Halloween shirt, and today ended up being such a great day. Like, it was such a nice Halloween. The only thing that did suck is that earlier today, when me and my sister ended up going to the apple farm, the little skeleton romper that I was wearing, I went to the bathroom, and like, it's so annoying to have to go to the bathroom in an outfit like that, because you literally have to like almost take the entire thing off just to go to the bathroom. But then after I was like putting it back on, the zipper got stuck on my chest like really low, and I was like, oh my god, like that's like actually my worst nightmare, because the zipper would not budge and it was so stuck. And so luckily I had my, you know, puffer jacket that I was wearing over the skeleton romper, so I was able to like zip up my puffer jacket so that nobody would be able to see. But like, oh my god, what a nightmare. Like, I think the zipper is broken on that already, which is crazy because like I only wore it for like less than 2 days. So that is a little bit of a bummer about the skeleton romper, but like otherwise this was a really perfect Halloween, and like I can't complain. And then we just had a really cozy night in at the apartment. We were doing a lot of coloring today. We also ended up watching Haunted Mansion kind of like in the background while we were coloring, as well as Trick or Treat. And then we also watched the first 2 episodes of the new show that's called It, Welcome to Derry. And it's the show that's kind of like the prequel to the movie It from 2017, I think, because it takes place in the 60s. And the show is pretty interesting so far. Like, I don't know, I'm not obsessed with it the way that I was with like the It movies. I do think it's a little bit like slow paced for me at times, but I am really invested. Like, I definitely want to continue with the series and see how it goes. But so far I'm finding the first 2 episodes to be just okay. It was really fun though to watch both of these episodes on Halloween, like with Rachel and Obed, because they get really into it too. And yeah, we also caught the very end of like the World Series game because the Dodgers were playing the Blue Jays tonight and the Dodgers ended up winning. And so now they're actually going to Game 7, and Game 7 is going to be tomorrow night, which is crazy because I don't think I'm going to be able to watch the game at Brittany's apartment because she doesn't have access to the game. So I'm just going to have to keep up with it on my phone. But like, oh my gosh, I love when the World Series goes to the final game, like Game 7. It's going to be so exciting. But anyway, I wasn't able to do much reading at all today because I was pretty much, you know, out with Rachel and Obed and just hanging out all day. We also did have a little bit of trick-or-treaters, but we didn't have as many as we like normally do. I would say there was maybe a total of like 8 knocks on the door tonight. Like, there wasn't too many people out there, and I feel so bad because Rachel like got an entire bucket of candy. But anyway, it has been raining so hard today, which is probably part of the reason why we didn't get too many trick-or-treaters tonight, is because it's been dumping rain all day. It's been like very aggressive rain to the point where like on our weather app now it says that we have a flood warning because of how much it's raining. And so that definitely sucks. Like, I feel so bad for all the kids that just wanted to trick-or-treat this Halloween and it's like dumping rain. But tomorrow I'm going to be driving down to Brittany's apartment, so I have about like an hour and a half of a drive in the morning. But either way, I'm really excited to drive down to my friend Brittany's place tomorrow and to do some reading with her tomorrow, because we're going to try to do the whole like 12-hour readathon thing tomorrow. So hopefully I'll be able to get a lot of reading done this weekend. Hello, it is almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I have been here reading at Brittany's for the last couple of hours. We are about 2 hours into our reading challenge of the evening. We're trying to read for about like 12 hours today is the plan. And oh my gosh, driving up here was so crazy because the rain was so heavy. On the freeway, there was a few moments where I would just hit these like pockets of water. And we've just been, you know, chilling, like having a nice rainy Saturday. But I have started reading One Bad Night and Other Stories, and this one is the short story collection that I've been so excited to read. There are 8 short stories in this collection, and I've now read the first 4 of them. And there are 8 different authors in this short story collection. And I think I've read from 6 of them before, and 2 of them I've never read from before. So it's really cool to be able to like try out some new horror authors, but then also to like be reading from horror authors that I already know and love. And so far for the first 4 short stories, the first one that I read was this one called Two Observers of the Slaughter Rites on Gannett Island. And this one's from an author that I've never read from before. Their name is Kay Chronister. And this one unfortunately was around like a 2.5 stars. I just wasn't the biggest fan of it, even though I do think the horror elements in that one were really cool, but it kind of had this like historical feel to the writing, and I just wasn't that invested. I mean, it actually took me like so long. I think it took me like 45 minutes to read just that first short story because I could not pay attention to it for the life of me. Like, my brain was just all over the place. But also like that tends to happen to me sometimes when I'm trying to like only read physically and like not use the audiobook, so that could also be part of the reason. But like that one was not my favorite. But then the second short story was a 5-star for me. Oh my god, I loved it. It was called My Lithopedia, which like I don't even know what that means. But like, okay, listen to the first sentence of this short story. It says, "When they cut Mama open, they found my 38-year-old twin dead and preserved like an ancient fossil." Like, what the heck do you mean? Oh my god, that one was so good. It was so strange, and it was like exactly the kind of weird shit that I like in horror. And that horror story was actually by this author named Del Sandine, and that was the only other author that I have not read from in this collection before. So like to have a 5-star from an author that I've never read from before is so cool. And that one was really good. It was just so weird, and like the ending kind of like gave me chills. Also, there was something very like Jordan Peele about that story. I don't know, it just really, really worked for me. And then the third one was this short story called Lady Jawbone, and it was by Kylie Lee Baker, which Kylie Lee Baker is the author of the book Bat Eater. And I was a really huge fan of Bat Eater this year. Like, that book was a 5-star for me, but unfortunately this one was only a 3-star for me. I really liked the concept in this one, but it did feel I don't know, it kind of felt a little bit like fantasy to me at times. I mean, the writing in this one was really beautiful. Like, I loved the way that this was written when it says, I remember the names of colors, blue, yellow, lavender, pink. I taste the words, know that they used to mean something. Like, the writing in it was really beautiful and like really vivid. And I also liked that this one felt like a little bit gay. Like, there was definitely some like gay undertones in this one that I really liked. But for the most part, like, the plot itself just didn't really intrigue me that much. So I only ended up giving that one 3 stars. And then the fourth story that I just read is the one that's by Rachel Harrison, and it's called A Necromancer's Guide to Reconnecting with an Ex. And that one was really cool. It was really fun. I feel like Rachel Harrison is an author that I've always had like hit or miss experiences with, except for her most recent book that I just read called Play Nice. I loved that one so much, but this one ended up being around like a 3.5 for me. I really enjoyed the concept in this. Like, I love the idea that we're following this girl who's like a necromancer, and she's like being visited by one of her past boyfriends who's recently died, and he's like trying to, you know, communicate with her again. I think the concept for it was really cool and really interesting. I just think the end of the story just went in a direction where I feel like it just kind of like fizzled out, and I kind of like wanted it to go somewhere else. I thought it could have had a really cool ending, and then it just didn't really go anywhere for me. So it's only a 3.5, but I really did like that one a lot. And so I'm really excited that I've already read the first 4 short stories in this collection. I think I'm gonna save the last 4 for a little bit later tonight, because I think I'm gonna take a break from this one for now. So I think the time has come for me to start Hazelthorn by CJ Drews. And this is one that I am so excited, but also like so nervous to read, because I do think this is like my most anticipated book of, you know, the second half of 2025, because of how much I loved Don't Let the Forest In. So like, no pressure, but if this book is not 5 stars, like, I'm gonna be absolutely devastated. So I'm gonna get started on this one. Brittany also just finished reading her first novella of the day. It was called I Can Fix Her, and look at this cool cover. Like, this is a really cool cover, and she ended up really liking it. I think she said she's giving it 4.25 stars. Very exciting. She said it was kind of weird at times. This is a horror novella that I haven't really heard anybody talking about this, and I think it only has like 300 ratings on Goodreads. So like, that's amazing. glad that it went well. I'm gonna get started on this, and I will update you with more thoughts once I get into it.
Ain't got no loyalties, no one to please. I just got that glue. Breathing hard and never leave, setting my soul free.
Hey, hello. I just wanted to check in for another update, because it is just after 5 o'clock at night, and we've been reading for a little bit over 4 hours at this point. Brittany actually just finished reading Walking Practice, which is like one of my favorite horror novellas, and she really enjoyed this one, and she ended up giving it 4 stars. So that's exciting. But I wanted to update you on my reading, because I've been reading Hazelthorn by CJ Drews, and at this point, I'm 208 pages in, and I'm already 60% of the way through this one on audio, and I'm so... I feel so devastated to let you know that like, I'm not loving this, not nearly as much as I loved Don't Let the Forest In. I mean, I know that I was setting the bar, you know, pretty high for this one because of how much I loved Don't Let the Forest In. So this one does feel very similar to Don't Let the Forest In a lot of ways, because it's another, you know, young adult horror novel that follows these young 2 boys, and it is like a queer kind of romance story between the 2 boys. And in this story, we're following our main characters, this guy named Evander, and he was basically taken in by this billionaire named Byron Lennox Hall when he was a child. And so ever since 7 years ago, he's been living at this place called Hazelthorn Estate. And this guy Byron, he has this charming grandson named Laurie, and Laurie and Evander don't get along because 7 years ago, Laurie tried to kill Evander. And so now the story is taking place, you know, like 7 years later, and he's been at this place, Hazelthorn. And then right at the start of this book, his guardian, this guy Byron, actually dies. And Evander has reason to believe that he was like murdered. It seems like he was like poisoned or something. Like, they don't know exactly what happened to him, but it was like a really creepy scenario. And he doesn't know like who could have murdered him, because when they were at the estate that night, it was only Evander that was there, Laurie that was there, and then this other guy that's like one of the caretakers. And it was creepy because as his, you know, caretaker guy was like passing away, he was saying, don't go in the garden. So it's almost like leading you to believe that something creepy could be happening like in the garden of this place. I don't know, it sucks because like I'm so torn because I do really love the writing in this book, and I think the writing is just as like whimsical and kind of feels almost like a dark fairy tale in the same way that Don't Let the Forest In feels to me. Like it has like a very similar writing style, and at times it almost feels like both of these characters are kind of like carbon copies of the characters from Don't Let the Forest In some ways. But I also just feel like I'm not really connecting with these characters as much as I connected with the characters from Don't Let the Forest In, and I don't know why that is. I mean, the writing in this book is still really beautiful and like really incredible. Like just an example of the writing is when he says he shouldn't watch for him through his window or think about his cornflower blue eyes and the beautiful shape of his wretched mouth. Evander can still taste blood and earth and rotten petals and a death that almost spilled like indigo ink. And it says 7 years ago, Lawrence Lennox Hall tried to kill him in the garden down amongst the roses, but somehow Evander is still obsessed with him. Like the writing is beautiful. I also do love that this main character, Evander, he's on the autism spectrum. And I love how this author actually talked about how this is like an own voices story, and they were writing about some of their own experiences, or like they were writing about a character that they can really relate to. There was a quote that said, "He's always been like this, averse to the feel of things, sickened by a texture, his reactions disproportionate and swiftly followed by shame. The only things that feel safe pressed against the open palm of his hand are soft mounds of soil or a leaf curled up like a secret." So I really do love like the writing in this book, and I love like the representation. I just don't know if I care that much about the plot of this. You know, because I feel like so much of this story so far has been about these two young boys trying to solve the murder of this like billionaire guy. And to be honest, like I don't really know if I care about like what happened to this man. There's also this like common theme throughout the book. I mean, even on the back here when it says there's something wrong with the garden, and it seems like a lot of the horror elements in this book are related to this garden. But even now, like I'm about 200 pages into the book, and we are just now getting to know more stuff about the garden. Like it hasn't really been as big part of the story as I thought it would be. So I don't know, this one is going just okay for me so far, which is kind of devastating. Like this feels like it's probably only going to be maybe like a 3-star at most for me, and that is absolutely heartbreaking because this is like one of my most anticipated books of this entire year. But I think for now I'm going to take a break from this because me and Brittany, we actually want to do a buddy read of the book Hot for Slayer by Ali Hazelwood. I might also read the one by Ruby Dixon that's called Space Vampire, and then I also think me and Brittany want to do some DoorDash tonight. I think we're going to DoorDash ramen to the apartment so that we don't have to leave because it is still dumping rain out there. Like it has just been nonstop raining all day. We actually have like a flood watch. We don't want to leave the apartment tonight, so I think the move is going to be to DoorDash ramen here, which should be amazing because my favorite ramen place is out this way. So like it's really special anytime I get to have it here. Okay, hello, checking in again because it's now 7:30 at night and we've been reading for almost 7 hours. We did order in the ramen. We got it DoorDashed and like, oh my God, the ramen was so good. Me and Brittany just finished buddy reading both Hot for Slayer by Ali Hazelwood, and then we also read Space Vampire by Ruby Dixon. We read both of these, and it's really cool because when you download these stories on Amazon Prime, it also does automatically download the audiobook through Audible. So we were able to like play the audiobook through a speaker, and we were just kind of like following along with both of our Kindles. So like that was really cool. And I love being able to buddy read like that with like the audiobook just like playing over a speaker and then we just follow along. Hot for Slayer ended up being a really fun time for the most part. You know, like I mentioned, this one's kind of about a vampire who has this romance with a vampire slayer. But the thing is that the vampire slayer guy, like he has amnesia at the start of this. So like he doesn't remember who he is or like what he is. He doesn't even remember the fact that he's like a vampire slayer. And it was just so cute and so entertaining. Like I don't always love, you know, stories where like a character has amnesia and they don't remember who they are. That's something that's like very hit or miss for me in books. But I did like the banter in this one in particular, and I liked that we were only following from the perspective of the female character in this one, and the fact that she was a vampire, and we got a little bit of the history about like vampires and like how it works in this particular book, and it was just really interesting. It was really well done. I really liked the characters, and like there were a few moments that like made me laugh. Like it was just cute. I feel like Ali Hazelwood is just like really good at writing like cute banter between the characters. She's like, oh my God, like the second he remembers he's gonna try to kill me. So she's trying to like make sure that he doesn't figure out who he actually is. And it was just kind of fun. Like it was perfect length. I mean, the story was about like 90 pages long, and I think both Brittany and I really enjoyed it, and I think we're both gonna give it around like 3.5 stars. It was really cute. And then the next short story, Space Vampire by Ruby Dixon, jail. Honestly, jail. Like, what the fuck was that? Okay, listen, listen. I wanted to read this one because I think the idea of a space vampire, it sounds cool, right? Like it does sound cool in theory. This is from the same author as Ice Planet Barbarians, which I actually have read. And I did think Ice Planet Barbarians, it was fun, you know, like it was silly, it was a little bit stupid, but like it was mostly fun. And I think I gave that one 3 stars. So I was really curious to read Space Vampire, but like, oh my God, this was so weird. So we have this girl who's like our main female character, and we do follow from both perspectives, by the way. Like we get the main female girl's character, and then we also do follow from the perspective of this guy who's like the vampire. So we do get dual point of view in this one. She's on this spaceship, and it seems like all the aliens have like abandoned their spaceship, and she is described as being like their pet. Like they call her the pet poodle, and so she has to like walk around with like no shoes, and she's only wearing this like tiny little dress because she's supposed to be their poodle or something. I don't fully understand, but I think that this one does take place in the same universe as Ice Planet Barbarians because she's talking about how the aliens are like really tall and really blue skinned, and it sounds like it is the exact same aliens, you know, from that book series. But anyway, she ends up finding this guy who is like described as being the monster that's like on the spaceship with her. And after a few different things happen, she starts to come to the realization that he's a vampire, but like he doesn't even fully understand that he's a vampire. He's just like, yeah, I'm like a monster who drinks blood. And then she's like, yeah, it sounds like you're a vampire. And they start to put that together. And like, this is another one that's very short, by the way. I think the book is only like 70 pages and the audiobook was only like, I think we only listened to it for like 35 to 40 minutes. It was very short. The beginning of it was fine. It wasn't offensive. It was like entertaining enough. And then when I tell you like the second half of this book is basically just smut between these two, and like not in a fun way. Like some of the words like some of the words that they used were so cringy, and I just can't. Like it was not fun to listen to. I did not like following from either one of their perspectives because honestly, like she was kind of annoying, and the way that she would describe him kind of gave me the ick, but then the way that he described her like really gave me the ick. And there was just really like truly nothing enjoyable about that for either of us. So I apologized to Brittany for having her read this with me because we were both like, what is this? I should have checked on Goodreads actually, because this one has like a 3.3 out of 5 on Goodreads, which is pretty low. And I think if I had known that it had that low of ratings, I probably wouldn't have even wanted to read it, to be honest. But yeah, we were both saying how like, wow, it's just really bad. And it kind of reads as if this is like Bella and Edward Twilight fan fiction, but in space. Like that's kind of how it feels, because she's like, oh my God, you're a vampire. Like, what if we had sex? Like that's basically the premise of the book, is like a vampire in space figuring out how to have sex with human girl. So that was less enjoyable. And I think Brittany and I are both gonna give it 1 star, I think. Ooh, sorry. I just really don't know. Like I expected so much more. I thought it would be cool. I do think the concept of a space vampire is a very fun concept, but like that just really didn't do anything for me. But something cool about this romance series, these are called the Scared Sexy series on Amazon, by the way. I love that both of these had something to do with Halloween. Like both of them specifically mentioned Halloween. But anyway, it's a little bit later in the night. I think I'm going to take a shower because I feel like I desperately need to wash my hair. And then I think after that, I'm going to finish Hazelthorn. And then after that, I'm going to read the last 4 short stories in one bad night. Few hours have passed. It's now about 10:20 at night, and we've been reading for almost 10 hours. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I took a little bit of a break because, you know, my Dodgers were in the World Series tonight and it was game 7. And so I literally took like 40 minutes to like FaceTime my sister so that I could watch some of the game because, dude, game 7 was insane tonight. Like if you saw that game, holy shit, it was so intense. They were tied, bottom of the 9th inning. Like they tied the game in the 9th inning, and then they went extra innings. It went 11 innings and the Dodgers won in the top of the 11th inning. Like, oh my God, it was just so crazy. And it was such a good game. Like I feel like this World Series was like one of the most entertaining World Series I've ever seen. Like it was so action-packed, and so it feels really good. And you know, I'm from California, okay? That's why I'm rooting for the Dodgers. I know everybody wanted the Blue Jays to win because the Blue Jays were the underdogs, you know, like I get it, but like the Dodgers are my team, and I can't believe they are back-to-back World Series champions. Like they won last year too, which is crazy. But anyway, I wanted to update you because I finished reading Hazelthorn and I have been dreading this update so much right now because I didn't really like this book. I didn't really care for it. I know earlier I was saying, oh, this is probably going to end up being around a 3-star for me depending on how, you know, the rest of it goes. But unfortunately, I think I'm probably actually going to end up giving this around like 2 stars. And that's for a lot of reasons, but it's also because I just thought that this book felt way too long. Like this book was way too long. It got so repetitive in the second half for me. And as much as I love this author's writing, you know, like I think this author's writing is absolutely incredible. And if I was just rating this book based off the writing alone, I think I would give this like 4 or 5 stars. Like I think the writing is absolutely gorgeous. It's so flowery. It's just so beautiful and whimsical. But I did not connect with these characters at all. I literally just don't care about them. And because this is such a character-driven story, I feel like you really need to care about them, you know? And I was also saying how like this book does remind me so much of Don't Let the Forest In a lot of ways. And it's crazy to even say that because, you know, Don't Let the Forest In is one of my favorite books of all time. So like it doesn't make sense that if this book reminds me of that book, then like why wouldn't this work for me? Don't Let the Forest In was just so much stronger for me because I loved these characters so much. Whereas in this book, because I didn't really care about the characters, it just made the story just like feel like it was dragging on and on and on. And also like there was one moment towards the end of this book that kind of surprised me, at least like in terms of the plot and what was happening. Like there was something that surprised me, but it didn't really like change anything. Like I mentioned, the first 200 pages were so slow that I was just like waiting for the plot to pick up. But then it even feels like by the time the plot did pick up, I just didn't really care. Like I felt so detached from everything that was happening. And then even in the second half, like some of the body horror, even like there was some really good, you know, like body horror and like botanical, you know, kind of like plant horror type stuff happening in this book. And most of it was written very well, but I just didn't care about anything that I was reading. And I was just kind of like skimming. I was like trying to get to the end because I was like, okay, where are we going? And then also like the very end of this book, I feel like that's another reason why I want to give it 2 stars because I did not really care for that ending. I was just like, oh, like this is how we're ending it? Like, okay. I just feel so confused and I feel so devastated right now because this was definitely like one of my most anticipated books of the year. I mean, I am really excited to know that CJ Drew's like their next book that they're coming out with next year is actually going to be their adult debut. And so I am really looking forward to that one because I do think part of the reason too is that this book is young adult and at times it does feel kind of young adult and I'm just not as interested in reading the young adult stuff anymore. But like, wow, I am so sad to give you this update. Like I did not think that this was going to happen. I really didn't see this book going in this direction. Like I thought for sure when I picked this book up today that I was going to be like praising it and claiming that this is like one of my favorite books that I've read this year. So I'm so upset that this is probably a 2-star for me. And I also do acknowledge that I have a very unpopular opinion when it comes to this one. I've already looked on Goodreads and like this one is getting a very high average rating so far and it just came out. So like don't let my negative review like steer you from reading this one if you want to read this one because a lot of people seem to be really loving it. But anyway, I am so upset. I think for the rest of the night, I'm going to be trying to finish the rest of the stories in one bad night. I still have 4 stories to go. Okay, hello. It is now the end of the night. Where's my timer? We've been reading for almost exactly 12 hours. It's been 11 hours and 53 minutes. It's about 12:30 in the morning right now. But we have some updates because we have completed our little 12-hour readathon that we were doing today. And Brittany has been reading a number of different things this afternoon and like this evening. The most recent thing that she just finished is this one called One Hand to Hold, One Hand to Carve. And she ended up giving this one 4 stars. She really enjoyed it a lot. And then I will flash on the screen her little like wrap-up thing that she made so you can see all the different things that she read today. She's in progress with like a few different things right now. She's had an incredible reading day. I feel like her reading day has gone a little bit better than mine. I wanted to update you because I just finished reading One Bad Night and Other Stories. I read the last 4 short stories in here and I have so many thoughts, but like overall, I really loved this collection. Oh my God, it was so good. Like I really hope Aardvark does something like this again in the future because of how amazing this was. So the last 4 stories that I just read, one of them was called Red Tide, and that was by CJ Lead, who is the author of Mayfly. And that one was really interesting because that one was like an aquarium type of horror book, and that was so fascinating. I gave that one 3 stars. I think if it like did things a little bit differently, I could have rated it higher, but I loved the concept in that one. I thought it was really interesting. And then the next one was called 47 Pineview Way, and that was by Jennifer Thorne. And Jennifer Thorne is the author of Diavolo, which was a horror book that I gave 5 stars. And that one for me was so interesting. That one was kind of more of like a psychological kind of horror. It was about like a main character not knowing if she could like trust her own reality in a way, and I loved it. I gave it 4 stars, but I do think that that one for me, it was like a 5-star concept, but like the execution of the story, like I wanted a little bit more out of the ending of it. I feel like it really could have gone 5 stars though if it had just done something a little different at the ending, but the idea was so good in that one. And then the next one that I read was called A Meditation on the Existence of Certain Cutlery. I'm not entirely sure why the story is called that, to be honest, but this one's by S.A. Barnes, and this one was the only kind of like sci-fi horror in this collection, because this one actually takes place on the moon when there's like this team that's like discovering something on the moon and like trying to navigate during this mission. I don't know. That one started really slow for me actually. Like it took me a little bit to get into it because that one is a little bit longer. It's about like 40 pages. So for the first like 15 to 20 pages, I was kind of like, what am I reading right now? And like, what's going on? But then once I understood what was happening, I thought it was really cool actually. And I gave that one 3.5 stars. And then the final story in this collection is the one that's called One Bad Night. And it's by Stephen Graham Jones. And Stephen Graham Jones is an author that I've read from time and time again. And I feel like he's a very hit or miss author for me, but I think what I've discovered about Stephen Graham Jones is I do like his shorter stuff usually more than his full-length books, because my favorite books that I've read from Stephen Graham Jones are Night of the Mannequins, which is one of his novellas, and then also Mapping the Interior, or whatever that one's called. Like that was another one of my favorites from him, and that's another novella. And so I'm not that surprised, but I am surprised that I ended up loving this final short story. I gave it 4.5 stars, and this one really surprised me because this one kind of deals with like grief horror in a way. That one was so hard hitting and it was gonna like make me emotional, and I was like, Stephen Graham Jones, like you had the audacity, like how could you do this to me? Like if it wasn't so late at night and I wasn't like disassociating while I was reading it, I probably would have like cried for real because it was so sad, but it was so beautiful. And I really do love grief horror, especially when it's written in that particular way. Like, I don't know, it was a very thought-provoking and very like heavy story to end the book with, but I also think that that was like the perfect way to end this collection of stories, because I think Stephen Graham Jones, his was the most like hard-hitting and the most emotional out of all of these stories. But something that I loved about this collection of horror short stories is how diverse all the different horror in this collection was, because none of these were similar. Like I love the fact that we had like historical horror, we had kind of like weird kind of like body horror, we had aquarium horror, we had kind of like more of like a romantic type of horror with like the Rachel Harrison. We had one that kind of felt more fantasy, and then we had like psychological horror, we had grief horror, we had space horror. I just love that there was really like a mix of everything in this, and I feel like that's what I love the most about short story collections, especially in the horror genre. I feel like if you're not a big reader of the horror genre, I do think something like this would be so good for you to read, just to kind of get like a sample of all of these different subgenres of horror and trying to figure out like what works for you specifically. And even though I did add up my total for all of the ratings in this book, and when I divided it by 8, it says that my average rating for this is around like a 3.6, but I think I'm just going to round that up to a 4-star because of how much I enjoyed so many of the ideas in this collection. Like it was just such a great collection of short stories. I think my favorite in this collection was definitely that second short story that was called My Lithopedia by Del Sandine, and I also realized that this is the same author as This Cursed House, which is a book that I do own. Like it's on my TBR and I do own it, but I haven't read it yet. So that's exciting to know that that author wrote the only 5-star that I had in this collection, and that's amazing. And then my second favorite was definitely the Stephen Graham Jones One Bad Night. That one was so good. I also really loved the Jennifer Thorne. This was so impressive. I love Aardvark for doing this. Like I'm really hoping that they make more collections like this. And so yeah, that is going to be a wrap on this reading vlog, on this Halloween weekend reading vlog. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm actually kind of surprised that I think my favorite thing that I read this entire weekend was actually the Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre book. Like that was so freaking good, and I definitely discovered a new favorite with that one. And I mean, I did love One Bad Night. Like this is definitely a close second for everything that I read this weekend. Thank you so much for watching this reading vlog. You'll have to let me know if you've read any of these books that I read in this video. Let me know what are your thoughts on them, and thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you next time. Bye.